Okay, all rise for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez is absent. Councilwoman Eckhart. Here. Councilman Larka.
Here.
Councilman Lord.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear in electronic device. Please put it on vibrate. We have mostly presentations this evening, and the first one is with the United States Census Bureau and Karen Barnes. Oh, by the way, there's a rental charge for my computer.
Yes, you'll need, yes, you need the mic.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for having me, and I sincerely apologize for throwing your meeting off. I think people here are pretty sophisticated about the census based on your response rates, but 2020 is going to be conducted differently than any other census has in the past. So just quickly, if you could hit the slide there. Okay, so basically, we do the census because it's mandated by the Constitution, and excuse me, it determines several things. It determines your representation in Washington. It determines districting, although in New York, school districting is a little bit different. And it also determines how $675 billion federal dollars are allocated toward the states, and therefore the communities. So that's the reason it's very important. It's one of the reasons it's very important to get your census numbers where they need to be. Next slide, please. One of the issues that has been at the forefront, especially this year, is data protection and the confidentiality of the census. The census is 100% confidential. We gather information by tracks, so you cannot literally go in and get an address to see where that information is coming from. We have something called PII, which is personally identifiable information. That information is immediately washed out when it gets to the Census Bureau, so no one has access to that. The president or cabinet members or Congress can't call the census and say, I need to see this information, because for whatever reason they can't do it. It has been challenged in court several times. Every time the court has upheld the confidentiality of the census. So it's very important that people understand that. It's especially important for your immigrant population, but honestly, we have found that there are American citizens who do not fill out their census because they are afraid of what people will do with the information. And I'd like to tell people, frankly, Google has more information on you than probably the census does. I won't get near that information, but when I took this job, I had to swear an oath that I would not reveal anything, any confidentiality, any confidential information. And if I do, I'm subject to a $250,000 fine and 5 years in prison, and that goes all the way up the chain. So, next slide, please. This year, the census is going to be conducted, as I said, very differently. In the past, everybody got the paper ballot, you filled it out, and you mailed it in. This year, there will be 4 ways to respond to the census. The first 3 are what we call self-response. The first self-response way, and this is what we're hoping 80% of the population will do, is by your computer or your smartphone. Now, we recognize that not everybody has computers or access to the web, so we do have supporting programs in place for that, and that's where your complete count comes in, your community to support, and we'll talk about that. The second way is by your regular phone, your landline. You can respond. And if you respond via your landline or your computer, you have access to 59 different languages. So it's everything in English is in Spanish, but there's quite a few languages there that we use to help people fill out this form. The third way is the old-fashioned way, which is you get your census form in the mail, and we ask you to fill it out and mail it back in. And then the fourth way is what we call it's non-response, and that is your friendly census taker comes to your house and says, we noticed we have not gotten a response from you. Do you mind if we do it now? So if people don't want census coming to their house, the best thing they can do is fill out the census form. And early March, so this is how it's going to go. Early March, we'll be sending out mailers that says the census is coming. And then we'll send out a second one that says the census is here. And you'll get a little ID on that number that you put in your computer, and that will identify your building, because the census goes by addresses, not by names. So that will identify your address, and you can fill it out. You can also use that for your phone. And if you speak another language, the card will tell you what number to call for the language that you want to speak. Okay? Around April 1 is Census Day. So that's the day we're saying, please, everybody fill out your census form. And after that, we will send out reminders. Starting about the second week in March, we will be able to tell you who in your community is responding and who's not. That's, again, where it becomes important for you to have a committee in place, so that when you see that certain areas are not responding, you can get out there, you can get your boots to the ground and say, hey, guys, you really need to get this going. And then starting in May, we will be sending out enumerators, basically, to collect the data. So, next slide, please. Okay, so I've covered this. You can go to the next one, please. That's not relevant. The one thing I wanted to mention, in addition to filling out your census forms, is that we are recruiting people to work for the census. Most of these are enumerator jobs, but there are other jobs as well. They're tech jobs, clerical jobs. The jobs in Westchester pay between $18 and $22 an hour. We like to hire people in the community they live in to work. In other words, we like to hire people who are if we're going to have enumerators in Southeast, we hope that they live in Southeast as well. So to the extent that you feel that there are people here who might be interested in these jobs, again, we urge you to work with us to recruit those. So a lot of the a lot of the towns that we're working with are holding job fairs and making announcements about the census and the jobs that are available. And if you'd like, I can get into more detail about that later on. Okay, next slide, thank you. So what are the obstacles to the census? Basically, we know that our population has changed a lot. A lot of the issues that we face are unreported immigrants. One of the biggest undercounted groups in the census, believe it or not, are children under 5. Across all segments of the population. We don't really have a good reason for that. I mean, we think that people think, well, you know, my child is a toddler, she's 2, why should I put her on the census? And the reason is because by the time the next census comes around, she'll be 12, and she'll be going through a school system that didn't get the funds it probably could have gotten had she been counted. So another area, or seniors. That is also another area of undocumented, undercounted. And that's, again, where your local community can, complete count community, come in and support that. So one of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with libraries. Libraries have computer labs. They're a great place for people who are not computer savvy to go and get help filling out their census form if they want to do that. Basically, talking, you know, as I mentioned, the committee, we're hoping every area will get a complete count committee. You know, Westchester County has one, Yonkers has one, Peekskill, Port Chester, all of these areas. And basically that is to get together the trusted voices. It's not necessarily the city government, although it would be good to have a liaison on the city government. But a lot of times it's not-for-profits, businesses, and other people who work in the community who are trusted voices who can get the word out there that it's important for Southeast that you fill out your census form. So, next slide. We have different ways that we support you. We have, if you put together a complete count committee, or even if you don't, we have informational flyers, we have digital information, we have PSAs, we have a number of things. All you have to do is have someone contact me, and I would be very happy to supply that information. And I think that's basically it.
Still got 3 minutes.
Well, times of credit questions. Anybody have any questions?
And what do you expect for town governments to do for you? You're gonna send us something?
Say again, Tony?
What do you expect town governments to do? You're gonna ask us to do something, post things on our webpage? What are you gonna be asking?
Well, it's really, okay, so first of all, it's for you. It's not for us. It's for you, for your community to get their count up. So it's really up to you what you want to do, if anything. What we do is support you by telling you what other, what things have worked in the past, what other communities are doing. If you're comfortable with where your numbers are, you don't have to do anything. But I would suggest to you that every person counts in terms of dollars. And your population, you know it better than I do, may have changed since the last census. I mean, you have a relatively good response rate, but there are communities that are higher. So.
Okay.
And will we know, going through the process, will you know and be able to tell us that, gee, you're really way behind the spot you were, or how will we know, I guess is the question.
So you mean in terms of response?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I will be able to tell you that, but if you don't put a committee together to get that word out, it won't do you any good to know that, because you won't have an infrastructure in place to go out and make it happen, because it's going to happen too fast. So everybody now is doing their complete count committees. It's not that, it sounds very fancy, it's really not. You guys do committees all the time. What I would advise is that you have somebody who represents the government, and then you get some of your chosen, as I said, trusted voices. And that varies from community to community. It's very often faith-based groups, businesses, not-for-profits, people who have a voice in the community who will be heard to say, really, guys, we really need every dollar we can get for Southeast, because this is going to affect schools, hospitals, roads. They did a training today on schools and how much federal money goes into schools. That's after-school programs, lunches, as well as, the basic school infrastructure. So, and there are communities that take really, really advantage of every bit of the money they can get. So, our job, as I started this 6 months ago, I went to what we call the low count areas. And those are, understandably, places like Yonkers or Mount Vernon. I didn't have to go to Bronxville. They called. And you can imagine what their response rate is. So, okay.
Is there a date when the census, when they stop counting?
Yes. It will be, as I recall, the end of July. That's
End
it.
of July 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
And are you able to tell us what our response rate is? Or was?
Well, yes, we will be able to do that. So, as I said to you, as the numbers, it's something called a live count. So as people are responding on a weekly basis, we're gathering those numbers, and we would be able to tell you, okay, here's what you're doing so far, and here's where you're doing it, and here's where you're not doing it. Okay. And then once it's all done, yes, we can definitely.
And can you tell us our response rate from 2010?
Well, you can, yes, that's available to you on the census site.
Okay.
Let me mention something called Roam. It's our area outreach mapper. And if you go on the census site and you will put in, unfortunately it does it by county, I can't do it by zip code. And then you'll find Southeast there, and you hone in on that. It will show you not only what your response rate is, but what it is for every tract. And it will give you some very valuable information. So not only what the response rate is, but the median age, the median income, the median education, all of that is right there. And if you have any problem with that and you need help with that, I'd be more than happy to help you. I'll give you my card.
Okay. I have used the site. I thought it was really good. I just didn't know we could get the response rate, so that'll be very
There is.
helpful.
And let me just be very clear about that. When you go into Roam and it's really a predictor of what we expect you to have this year. So it's a combination of what happened in 2010, but it's also a combination of the response we've been getting from our other surveys, like the American Community Survey, which happens every year. And that's a pretty, so
Great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone from the public?
Everybody gonna fill out their census?
Should have brought the forms with you.
Don't
Okay.
have those yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you
much.
again, I apologize.
You can have this here, and then you can email us what you have. Oh, don't give it back, that's all.
Do you want it?
Yeah.
Do you want any, I ordered materials for you, they were not, they didn't get to me in time. Would you like me to send materials for the council?
Please.
Yes, and we'll put it up on the
Michelle would
internet,
like
et
it too,
cetera.
so that
Yeah, I'll
would be
give you
great.
something to get you started.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second item on the agenda this evening is the Putnam County Board of Elections, early voting. Do you need the screen, by the way? Do you need that?
No, we're going to have it short and sweet.
How many seconds?
3?
I don't know, that last presentation was pretty short. so
Yes, well.
That's good.
So my name is Kathy Croft, and I'm one of the commissioners at the Putnam County Board of Elections, and this is my co-commissioner, Anthony Scannapieco. And this year, the legislature passed early voting laws. So New York State became the 38th state to have early voting, which begins 10 days before the general election. It begins on October 26th and runs through November 3rd. And our one early voting location will be held at the Putnam County Board of Elections, which is located at 25 Old Route 6 in Carmel. It's right next to the bowling alley near the Humane Society. We'll be open Saturday. We're open the 26th from 9 until 2. We open at 9 o'clock every morning for early voting, so we kept that consistent. So it's 9 to 2 on the weekends, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday it's 9 to 5, and Tuesday and Thursday it's 9 until 8 o'clock at night. The door to the early voting, we're going to have it in our training room, so that's in the back of the building. There'll be plenty of signage and there's plenty of parking, and we encourage people to show up. We're also going to be introducing our e-poll books, and we will be, we're getting rid of the paper poll books, and everybody will be signing in electronically. So I figured I'd just do one person this evening just to show you how it works. I'm going to look up Wonder Woman. So all you have to do is put the last 3 letters in and then the first 3 letters, and you do a search. It comes up with her name. I was practicing this afternoon, so she's already voted, so I can't process her.
That's a terrible example, by the way.
Did you want me to do Peter Parker? Because I can do somebody else. But at any rate, and also for early voting, we're going to be printing ballots on demand. So this is all new technology. We'll be using the e-poll books also on Election Day at all our poll sites. No longer will you have to go to your specific election district table. You just walk in and go up to the sign-in table. You're going to sign in. You're going to be given a ballot receipt. You're going to walk over to the ballot table. You're going to hand them that receipt. You're going to be given your ballot. Go vote it at the privacy booths and have it scanned into the voting machine. And then we also have a help desk in case there is any problems. So I left you all schedules. I have schedules out. There's schedules out in the hallway for early voting. And would you like to say something?
You did a great job.
Oh, well, how about that? So, but does anybody have any questions?
Well, I was hoping to grill Tony, but now I don't
Oh,
have any
no.
questions.
He'll
No, I
answer
don't.
questions.
No,
Yes, it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So this was the money, and it's your money because it's grants from New York State, but we did receive, or will be receiving around $117,000 to pay for the e-poll books and for the print-on-demand ballots. So, all right, no questions.
Are all the counties
Yes.
using e-poll books?
No.
No, this is, and you are one of the start, or the first people using it, or first?
No, I don't know the exact number.
About 3/4 of us are using it.
Yeah, I
A
suspect,
couple of the small counties, they're just too small right now to get started to do it, but they'll be doing it sooner or later.
yeah. But we still have to have a paper backup just in case the power goes out on Election Day. So there will be a condensed version of the old paper poll books that we can use. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming.
Okay.
Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the Putnam County Legislative Chairman Joe Castellano and Paul Yankee, Putnam County Legislator. Update on the Danbury, Connecticut and Town of Southeast sewer line.
Good evening, everybody. I know that Supervisor Hay, I've promised you all along when there was something to report, I'd come and report to you. There's not a lot to report, but now's a good time to fill you in on where we are.
Did you give your name?
I'm sorry?
Did you say your name? I don't recall if you did. You say
Paul
your name?
Yankee.
I know you. Okay,
And this is Chairman Castellano.
good, thank you.
In early 2017, the county executive in Putnam County, County Executive Odell, recognized that there was a need both for environmental reasons and for economic reasons that the underutilized corridor on Route 6 would be best served with a sewer system. Because of regulations, we can't build our own. So she kicked off in September 2017 with a meeting of representatives of her administration and the city of Danbury. The basic idea is that if there are more users for Danbury, it would help the ratepayers of the Danbury sewer system while providing both environmental protection and economic opportunity for properties along that Route 6 corridor. The legislature funded both a feasibility study through J.R. Fulchetti Engineering and has funded legal work through Hogan and Rossi to begin the project. The initial study identified properties that would be included in the district. There was a general estimate of the gallons per day flow that would be required to be purchased from the city of Danbury. Based on that initial feasibility study, RFPs were issued for engineering firms to do design work with estimates on cost of construction. The RFP was issued. H2M, which is a company, they're down on Long Island and they have offices in Westchester, was selected. The contract has been negotiated, but it has not yet been executed. That's where we're at now. We don't have any estimates of cost of construction right now. The original feasibility study basically has a map of the properties that border Route 6 from the Danbury line to the village of Brewster. It's mostly commercial properties. You should know, environmentally, over 70% of the improved properties along that corridor have septics that have either failed or have outlived their useful lives. So we're moving forward, but we're still, as somebody said yesterday, we're in the bottom of the first inning at this point.
I forwarded you a letter from the concerned residents of Southeast, and they asked a couple of questions. Do you have that with you by chance tonight?
I do.
you-
It's
is
too
there any-
preliminary to talk about. We don't have an estimated cost of the overall project. I've heard numbers between 10 million and 40 million. Okay, but until the engineering firm gets involved with the design, we don't know if we're going along the railroad bed. We don't know if we're going to go in the DOT right-of-way. That has not yet been determined.
How many properties did you find between
There are about 100 properties
100?
served by the district, yeah, proposed for the district. We don't know what the monthly capital cost is. We don't, I didn't explore the Danbury sewer rates because they're subject to change anyway. I can tell you this, once a district is established, there'll be a public hearing. The establishment of the district is subject to a referendum. All right, so if the folks in the district don't want it, they can put it up for a vote.
And how do they do that, if and when it comes?
51% of the
100
assessed value of the district would have to sign a petition to have the permissive referendum. But keep in mind, if this is not economically feasible, the New York State Comptroller's Office is not going to permit this project to move forward. So we're still in the early stages. This H2M, the engineering firm, they're going to be hired, and we're using grant money. We have $750,000 of grant money that's through the DEC. I have it. The grant that we received for the engineering study is $750,000. So all these questions will be answered by H2M.
Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but way back when, I've been on the legislature way back when the watershed regulations first came in, and Bob Bondi had made a similar proposal to ship actually all the waste from Putnam County outside of Putnam County. And this corridor was, recommended at the time. And of course, that never came to fruition. So we have some people out there now that are, I can see one, he calls me probably once a month wanting to know when. And I tell him, it's a long ways away. So is there?
I believe when the dominoes start to fall, if it's economically feasible for those dominoes to fall, I think once the design work is done and the project begins to move forward, I think at that point it might move quickly.
Now, the county is currently not in any sewer, have any sewer water districts currently? The county itself?
No.
Has been first?
No, the only reason the county's involved in this is because, number one, we're crossing municipal boundaries with the Village of Brewster. The Village of Brewster is involved in this, and we're also crossing the state line. And as far as anybody knows, we just don't know of any other interstate sewer contracts.
But there's no intent on the county's part to form this and then put it in our laps and say, here, you take care of it now?
Take care of it in what way?
Well, as you know, we inherited, the town of Southeast inherited about 3 sewer districts and 8 or 9 water districts that we don't want.
From the county?
No, not from the county. I'm trying to find out.
Or
Is
from
this gonna be put on-
private, yeah.
Yeah, they walked away from it, and is the county gonna maintain this system if it stays and comes into up and running?
As I understand it, this is the county's baby, and it would be the county's responsibility.
And I want to at least make it clear now so everyone knows that we were not in the loop in the beginning. You've been trying to keep us in the loop, but tonight we know about as much as we knew 2 years ago.
Supervisor, we speak frequently, and I tell you that things are moving along slowly. These meetings take place, every 2 or 3 months. Councilman Larka has attended a couple of our meetings. Chairman LaPerche from the Planning Board attends our meetings. The frequency of these meetings is not very often.
Okay. I just, we get calls on it. There's people out there that come to ask, 5 or 6 times. I don't want to be a naysayer. I'm just going to tell them it's going to be a long time. Don't bank on it yet.
You know how government, the time moves very slowly in government.
I'm well aware. That's why I want people to know it's not going to be tomorrow.
It's not going to be tomorrow, no.
And this is, as Paul mentioned, this is a first of its kind. We don't even know of another interstate sewer district, so this is going to be a benefit to both. Danbury has excess sewer capacity, and they're looking for, obviously, sewage, and it could work for our benefit as well. With their sewer district is a bit older, and certainly they've done some work to it, but they're looking for more customers. They don't have the customers there. And with all the technology advances, people use less water now than they ever have in the past, so they have capacity to use, and as I've spoken in the past, 30 years ago, the first time I ever drove down this road, where you have 2 lanes of road going in both directions, it is prime location, and you have the reservoirs right there. DEP definitely is approving of this plan. As we spoke about, 70% of these properties have either failing septics or old outdated septics that need to be fixed. And this is a great opportunity for all of us. I know we're way in the early stages of this, but I think it's going to be a good thing for Putnam County and for the town of Southeast, of course.
Well, if there's any way they could expand the study, include Route 22, there's probably as many properties, if not more, and there's more prime real
Yeah.
estate, believe it or not, on 22 than Route 6.
Much.
There's definitely a possibility going forward with, we're, again, super early stages, but it potentially could happen, but right now we're looking at this one corridor.
It's been discussed, but for now, we think that it's most important to get this ball rolling down the Route 6 corridor, get it to the Village of Brewster. Properties like the Bull and Barrel would be involved in this. I know they've had septic issues. Before we start putting a spur up 22, but it has been discussed.
Okay.
And there is enough capacity. Danbury's over-designed their plant. And with all the water saving measures in, plumbing fixtures, they're not utilizing the plant up to the potential that they expected. And that's why there's an excess capacity right now.
Now, in the audience, I know quite a few business owners are here. If you'd like to ask a question, would you like to come up and ask that question now?
Tony, can the board ask first, or
No, okay, go. Public will be next.
Okay, only because I have a lot for you.
Oh,
I wanted to be more prepared, and my apologies to everyone, I'm not as prepared as I'd like. I foiled for this information back on August 5th, and there's a great deal of information, and unfortunately, I haven't gotten much back. So could you tell us a bit about the Fulchetti report? Was that about 37,000 with the J. Hogan legal
35
work?
or 37 what?
$1,000.
I think it was 31.5.
Okay.
32.5.
Pardon.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, so
No.
I'm going from memory.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about that report? I
What would
haven't
you like to
received-
know about it?
Well, what it established, did it just establish the number of properties? Did it, I mean, I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
The Fulchetti report, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
be happy to sit down with you and go over it. The main piece of the Fulchetti report is a fold-out map,
Okay.
which, I'll spare you the suspense, is basically a map of Route 6 from Danbury to the village line, with a red line drawn along the
I think I've
the
received
northern and the
those.
southern border,
Yeah.
behind all the properties that border Route 6. If the property doesn't border Route 6, it's not in the district.
Okay.
That's the key piece, the key element of the Fulchetti report.
Okay.
when you supply that to the town, can we put that on our website for people to see as well?
I'll make sure you get it.
Oh, but can it
Do
go on our
whatever you want
website
with
as
it.
well? Okay, thank you.
I did get some, I will say that, maps, but they were in color, which is okay. It's what I
Yeah,
received.
they are in
so-
color.
Not what I got, but that's fine.
Oh.
And I want to thank you both for coming, by the way, I'm sorry.
Lynn, anytime you want, I'll meet with you. You can make copies of everything that I have.
Great, because so far, I don't know whether I can attend those meetings, are they open to the public or not?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
call the meetings as a county executive.
Okay, because I would love to attend those. Okay, then I won't have so many questions. So.
Make sure you're invited.
Thank you. It won't be a quorum, so, unless Tony decides he wants to go, but, my other question is, I know it's very preliminary, but we had problems with one of our water districts, because what we couldn't negotiate with the village was that our rates would be tied to the village, their rates of the water district would be tied to the village rates. Has there been any discussion on tying these rates, our sewer rates, to Danbury?
City of Danbury contracts with 5 other municipalities. Don't
Right.
ask me to name them, but I know Newtown
Bethel.
is one, Bethel, Ridgefield. They contract with 5 other municipalities. Those municipalities pay the same rate as the ratepayers in the city of Danbury, and we have been assured that we will pay the same rate as those other municipalities and the city of Danbury.
That was actually one of our first questions when we first started
Right.
discussing this. Obviously, we need to make sure that the rates are the same.
Yeah, otherwise, there's just no point in even, yeah. I think you received a $1.2 million grant in December of 17, a CFA grant.
That'll be used for the construction of the project.
That'll be the actual construction,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
so
not
this-
for design, that's not for
Okay.
feasibility.
Okay. All right, let's see. So there's no estimate at all yet per cost for the project?
As I said, I've heard 10 million and I've heard 40 million,
Okay.
and every number in between.
Okay. And you probably know that the cost estimates for Danbury they needed to redo their sewage system, and it was about $102 million. Do we know, have those upgrades been completed? And if so, do you know what the final cost was? Because that will clearly
I
affect.
don't know if they've been completed, I don't
Okay.
know.
They were started, or they were supposed to start a couple of years ago, and they said it would take 2 years, but we all know how long that takes, so, okay. And while I've got you, and I just heard that Danbury is also considering a rail route down Route 6 as well, and that I read that the county would be paying $200,000 towards, do you know anything about this?
I read the same thing you read. I
Okay.
do know that they're exploring a train line from the
Danbury.
center of Danbury to the southeast station, which would alleviate a lot of the traffic that comes over and would free up some parking. I have asked our representative, I don't know if you were at the meeting that night, Neil Zuckerman,
Yeah.
our representative with the
I was there.
MTA. I've asked him if there's a way in the future, because New York residents are paying MTA payroll taxes,
Right.
if there's a way in the future to, number one, give benefit to, priority to Southeast residents, then New York State residents, and then the Connecticut residents as far as fares and parking. And he took the question quite seriously, and he was gonna bring it back to the MTA board. So that's really all I know about it. I know
Right.
that there's been a preliminary discussion. The county executive went to NIMTIC.
Right.
Please don't ask me what that stands for, but she went to
Yes.
NIMTIC and she got the commitment.
Transportation,
I don't know if it was for $750 or $1 million to explore a study to
On the rail.
run a rail line.
I mean, my concern is, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I won't know until we look at it, but it's like really frustrating to me if the county's gonna pay $200,000. I know you'd have to vote on it when we do pay a lot in the MTA tax as it is, so.
The article was the first I had heard of it. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions for us to pay $200,000 to explore, a benefit, something that would benefit Danbury. But I want to be very, very clear that project and the sewer project
Are
have
totally
nothing to do
separate.
with each other.
I was just, since we were down
Just,
that
yeah.
road, so, okay, so we don't, there's just not a lot that we know right now. Would you be able to find out for us about the Danbury sewer system, or is that something I should do to see if they've renovated the plant and how much it cost? Because those costs are gonna be passed along to us as well as if we get into the system.
You threw out a very large number. They
that-
also have a large number
Right.
of ratepayers.
Right.
I would think that the state of Connecticut would have the same kind of oversight that the state of New York has, in that if it was economically not feasible, they wouldn't allow them to.
Right. That was actually-
There'd be a bond.
Right.
There certainly must be affordable. The business owners I talked to over in Connecticut don't seem to have a problem with.
Right. And that was a referendum that the public did vote on, so the public approved it,
Yeah.
that expenditure. I was just wondering where it stood, since it'll affect our
I'll find
rates
out.
over
I'll
here.
find out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
John?
anyone?
Yeah, the falsetto report was $32,500. Was that also the legal? Was that part of did the legal thing?
Legal was separate, I have those numbers too. Legal was $19,235.79. There was also a permit for $250, for a total $51,985.79 in those areas of the engineering, legal, and the permit.
You identified what the engineering did. What did the legal do?
What legal guys do.
They're
Looking at all
exploring
the deeds and stuff.
the legality of signing a contract with a city in another state.
Okay.
There was a lot of background research that needed to be done during these discussions.
Is the Putnam County Law Department involved with this as well?
Putnam County, they were support, but Hogan and Rossi did most of the work.
Okay.
And again, we go back to the point that we couldn't find another interstate sewer line before, so we did need our attorneys to look at this and make sure we're doing everything the correct way.
Okay.
John, could I just ask one? Did really, the gist of it was getting the gist of this report, and I haven't seen it, is really just that there were roughly 100 properties, there wasn't any more than that, and then
There's also an estimate of flows per day. He estimated on a vacant piece of land what the potential development on that property
Okay.
would be. And then he extrapolated from that a potential for, there was a lot of estimating, a lot of,
Guesstimates.
Right. Otherwise, I would say Lori Bell could have done this, but okay.
Pick the word.
Go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
I just have one question. The thought of a train line from Danbury to Southeast is, I think, really intriguing. And you also mentioned that the sewer line may get put on the rail bed. So when you do those feasibilities, maybe some of that construction cost could be split if both of these projects were feasible, but I just think it's really interesting.
it was an interesting point that was brought up by the engineers at a certain time, that if you ran the sewer line through the rail bed, the excavation cost would be less. You'd certainly know that you're not going through rock, which you may hit in the right-of-way of Route 6. It was just an interesting avenue to explore, and I think once H2M gets involved, they'll do the analysis and determine which is our better way to go.
Is this railway the same as the bike path is going to be going to the Connecticut?
Yes.
Potentially, that would be great if we could do both. And again, everybody knows that rail line that goes from the village of Brewster, basically, over to the Danbury Mall. The last time a train went over the bridge by where the Honda dealership is now, was 2007, and the bridge has been closed down. So, it's interesting. I mean, again, we're really preliminary looking at this, but it'd be great if there was a light rail system that was coming from Danbury to the village and somehow going in to where Kobacher's is in that area, because that's where that rail line goes to. If it was light rail, it'd be nice, because people would get off in Brewster and walk around, and I think revitalize that area. Or potentially they could have their own sort of train line that will go from Danbury, and you'd sit in the train until you get to New York City. So again, very early stages, but there's potential there. I'd love the idea of a light rail line where somebody can go on in Danbury, head to Brewster, and then head right back to Danbury. It would be a bonus for the village and for the town, I think. But again, we're so early in the discussion. And then at the same time, we could tie in the sewer line, a potential bike path over there. But the line is there. The bridge needs to be replaced by the Honda dealership. And if we could fit everything in at the same time, it would be fantastic. But again, two different projects, and we're really early on the train line.
Thank you.
Any more?
Yeah, I had some questions.
Good.
Okay. So there are 100 properties that have been identified.
They said 120?
100.
100 even?
100.
100.
Approximately. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to ask more? or-
No?
Okay. And 70% of the properties along there, or 70% of the voting people or the voting properties for the referendum have septic sewage systems that failed? No?
That's not what no.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to understand. I'm not
Over
saying-
70% of the properties that are improved along that are identified in that study, over 70% of the improved properties have septics that have either failed or have outlived their useful life.
And how many of the 100 properties are they?
I'll look at the study. It's in the study. It's
Okay.
significant. It's drive down there and look at how many properties are
No,
improved.
I don't know. I don't have the study.
I don't
I'm
know what the
asking.
number is.
And when a referendum takes place, it will be weighted as to the assessed values of the properties, or will it be 100 votes and 151?
We haven't gotten that far, but I don't think
Okay.
that's how the permissive referendum works. It's 51% of the assessed value, the
Okay.
property owners have to create the referendum.
Okay.
And then those property owners affected, I don't know if they get one vote each, we haven't gone down that road yet.
Okay, and if someone wanted to be out of it, the referendum passed, that we didn't have a sewage or septic system, they would not be able to opt out of it. They would have to participate in any of the costs.
Well, I understand that you can't opt out. If you're identified in the district, you're in the district.
Okay. Thanks.
There will be, as at least at this point, we've discussed having capital cost of expense and operation and maintenance expenses at two different lines on, as far as tax bills.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question, sorry, but who did the study, who came up with the numbers on the septic failures or outliving their useful life? How was that
The
determined?
Putnam County Health Department.
Okay. And so that would be just, I don't know, well, obviously the failures, but on outliving its useful life, that's just people who haven't renewed or dug a new septic or?
No, they were designed prior to the current standards. And
Okay.
if that property was built or improved today, it wouldn't meet the current standard.
I believe the year is 1973. If you had built your septic prior to 73, the county wouldn't know about it.
Right.
So, and certainly if you had a septic from that far back, you probably need to improve it. And of course, if you improve it, you're supposed to go to the Department of Health and get the proper permits to do so. But I'm sure it's a rough estimate of the 70%. And I'm sure many of these people are probably waiting to see what happens next with the sewer line before they put a $15,000, $20,000 cost on replacing their septic.
Right.
That could potentially not be
Right.
necessary in the near future, hopefully.
Right. And my concern would be, like, we've approved development out there with septic, 185,000 square feet for a shopping center. I'm hoping that we all did the right thing by approving these, and that if this doesn't go in, that they'll be fine. So, it's troublesome, so, thanks.
Okay, is the board, questions? You can come back, but public. Would you mind coming up to the mic, please? And other people I know, please come up and ask your questions. Don't call me. I don't know.
Rick O'Rourke, as a 40-year resident of the town of Southeast. Back in 1996, the city of New York originally proposed to sewer the village of Brewster on Main Street, and that was it. There was no proposal for any other larger area. It was brought to the attention of the city of New York by me that we had failing septics on Marvin Avenue, and that I had environmental conservation violations that had occurred, and that if you were going to be sewering and protecting the watershed, it made sense for the city of New York to encourage sewerage services in areas where there were failing septics. Shortly thereafter, county, state, and the village of Brewster representatives got together as a coalition, and an application and advocacy occurred to have the city of New York consider sewering the entire village, but in particular Marvin Avenue. So the expense of this was picked up essentially by the city of New York, and it did so through a funding mechanism with the Environmental Facilities Corporation that essentially administered a lot of the payments. Bottom line was that because of the activities and urgency and advocacy of that coalition, instead of just sewering what was then, back then, the extent of the sewer service, and Tony, you probably remember this because it was just a Main Street trunk line, and then there was a connector up to the Garden Street School, and that was it. But as a result of advocacy, the city of New York then took it upon itself to sewer the entire village. I mention this because, quite frankly, when you're involved in something of this magnitude and you're talking about so many properties that have failing septics, the city of New York, because of the watershed regulations and the surface water treatment rules that are in place presently, That's a funding source. That is something separate and distinct from anything else by way of funding. And I've been around too long, but I remember I was part of all of this back in 1996, and it's something that I think the county should consider as well, because the City of New York, if it's brought to the attention of people at DEP, the extent of and the frequency of failing septics, that is a very fertile source of funding. So I'm just mentioning it, but it doesn't happen unless people really push it. Thank you.
Yes.
To comment on Mr. O'Rourke's statement, we have had the DEP attend our meetings, and they are very interested in knowing that these septics have failed, and because it is an environmentally sensitive corridor, they have been involved, and they are encouraging us to move forward, and I believe that there will be opportunity for a lot of grants down the road for the construction of this.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Come on.
My name is Claire McLean, and I am on Route 6. And just because a septic system was built in 1973 does not mean that it failed, and that it is a failure because of its age. If the 70% is related to the failure reported to the Board of Health, is that the case? That's my first question. Were they total failures, or are you determining failure on the year 1973?
This is the comment that the Board of Health gave to us.
Well, I'd like to see that truly determined.
They didn't exactly say they were failed, they said they were outdated.
Well, outdated, you're telling me out of the 170 of them could be all bad, right? Failure or their age is compromised.
I don't think that's what we said.
Okay. At any rate, you also have burning buildings that have spent a great deal of fortune with the planning board for new septics. And all of the new shopping centers have had to go through very extensive septic built septic systems to accommodate our rule. Also, you're talking about building either on the railroad bed, which you already have for a trail, a septic system, or a railroad. That'll be interesting to see. If you're putting this on the road, you are also going through DEP, DEC properties, and are you, as a county, required to do the state permits in order to build or disturb the area along that route?
We would be subject to those permits, and we are partnering.
You are subject to the permit.
Paul, would you get up to
the
the mic
DOT
and respond
the
so the public can hear it as well? Just speak into the
I'm
mic.
sorry.
please.
He wants your voice.
Yeah.
Go on.
We're partnering with the DOT, the DEP, and the DEC. And they are assisting us with, they will assist us with any permits down the road, but we will be required to get the permits.
And the reason you've picked this road is because Danbury has said it's a great idea?
No.
Okay, because there's really not a lot there. Downtown Brewster sounds a lot more important. Will each business have to pay for the hookup to this system independently, or will that also be in your construction costs?
It's too preliminary to know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just wanted to make a quick comment that there's a
Your
my
name?
name is Tyler Tremblay. There's a property where Polos in the 4.5 used to be that's owned by my family, and building was designed, actually with the Falshetti's group, was designed, was approved to some extent. The biggest setback was the septic. We could not build a septic the size that could support the building, and the DEP came in after everything was pretty much settled and shut the project down. There is a huge economic opportunity on Route 6 to make Route 6 a more developed area And this sewer line would really help that. We'd be able to build buildings, we'd be able to build things to serve the county and the town of Southeast using a great road, Route 6, 4 lanes, that 22 frankly couldn't support because of the traffic that's already there. It's a good connection between Danbury businesses and New York businesses, so I just wanted to make that comment that we've already had trouble with septics, and a lot of businesses on Route 6 are already looking at why would we spend $50, $60, $70, $100,000 on a septic system where we could potentially have something that is greater from Danbury. So, thanks.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Scott. I'm a landowner on 6. I'm also an engineer, does work in the area. Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming to get a sewer in. We did a lot of work on Mill Plain Road, and the pipes were too small. At that portion of the sewer mains, we had to do off-peak pump stations on all those hotels and shopping centers right before the border. So it's not only a requirement of a sewer main in our side of the road, but the pipes are too small on the Danbury side. So there's going to be there's some improvement requirements which will be needed for pipe sizing just to get the flow over to the center. A couple things also is locating the sewer main. Well, the sewer main has to be near the frontage of the lots because we want a gravity feed to the sewer main itself with all the existing properties along the strip. So putting a sewer main on the railroad right away, you could do that as a pump station to return the flow, but somehow you have to gather all the flows up within Route 6. So you have to think about that use of the railroad right away as only a return line, but not a collection line for the source. The last question I have is, you know, I brought with me the SR6 permitted uses, what zoning is allowed on that strip. And because the new zoning allows, everything's a special permit use. There's no approved uses on the site. In fact, sewer is really good for like restaurants, grocery stores, multiple family. And in terms of the zoning allowed, the only multiple family allowed now is senior housing by special permit. It does allow restaurant uses, but how many restaurants are you going to put on Route 6? The high demand water uses, if the sewer did come through, I think myself included, would like to have an expansion of the zoning to allow multiple family. It seems to be the big driver in our economy and other economies in the area, especially we're doing all of them in Danbury, we're doing them in Bethel, we're even doing it in the village of Brewster, we're doing multiple family. And again, if you have sewer, that's typically what takes place. So I think if we're considering a sewer main, I think we should look at the zoning allowed in the SR6 zone as well, and maybe make it more apropos to what the demands are in the area itself. It's a great idea. I wish you guys moved faster. I mean, someday I have to retire, and if I have to wait for the sewer main to come, I may be on being wheeled in here to get the project approved. But if we could maybe move things along a little bit, guys, it'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, I make a motion to go into the work session portion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Ace Indigo Road Alignment Site Plan.
Good evening, Councilwoman, Council, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Michael Endico. I'm one of the owners of my family business, Ace Endico. We're up on International Boulevard. Just a quick background, if you don't know, we acquired the property back in 2002. We moved into our building in 2005. When we moved into our building, we had roughly 89 employees. Today, in 2019, we have 465 employees. We take great pride in being in Putnam County in Southeast. We try to be a good neighbor. We try to keep the property clean, beautiful as we can. Something we're proud of, we just got voted a great place to work I think that's why we attract a lot of employment. Our business is, we need to be very efficient in our business, so that's why we're proposing moving the road and adding onto the building instead of using the 3 approved buildings across the street. We did acquire the land across the street from us about 3 years ago. And the way the plan is drawn up now, and we'll bring it up and show it, is there's 3 buildings approved across the street and then our existing building. If there's a way to move the street, add on to our existing building, it would be much more efficient. We're a food service distributor, and we pick orders to be delivered to restaurants, hotels, some supermarkets. And to have separate buildings for separate portions of business would be very difficult for us. We are in a growth mode. This would help us tremendously. Currently, our tax base, we pay a little north of $500,000 in taxes, and we estimate that we'd pay at today's rate over $750,000 in taxes with this expansion. Most of our traffic, because that is a question that comes up, our trucks leave between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. We do pick orders at night, so a portion of employment comes in at night. Our traffic pretty much goes down International Boulevard onto 84 east and west, probably 95% of it. We also do not go on Zimmer Road except for emergencies. That was part of the original approval of the building. We have some drawings to show, if I could present it to you. You can guys come up.
That mic comes off if you'd like to, when you put your posters up.
If you want to kind of show the audience too, that's fine.
As Michael had said, Ace Endico has been a tremendous company in this community for some years, and quite frankly, it needs to be expanded a bit. We are proposing, this is the existing condition plan. I'm going to pull up my little pointer here. And what we're trying to do, Michael, there are 3 lots in this area under the existing conditions that Michael had bought, all developable with buildings on them. All approved. There's a stormwater system to the bottom of this property. This is 84 as you approach the 312 intersection, and you come through International Road here, and Zimmer Road is on the back. What we'd like to do, as Michael has basically approached us and said, well, we want to expand the business, we want to develop these properties. Actually, John Lepler came up with the idea of expanding the building, not developing these properties, and expanding the building, which makes a more practical sense in terms of the operations of the building and how it's going to work. Having said that, what we want to do is relocate International Boulevard to come down through this area, which were the old building sites of what Michael's giving up, and basically coming down through, which I'll show you on the proposed plan. And that's why we're here tonight, is that we're going to need your board's approval for the relocation of this road, which basically International Boulevard was up through this area here. So essentially the building gets expanded in this area. There was previously approved, and part of the approval of the original Ace Endico was this building, this part, so that's going to be expansion. So between this, and we're also contemplating a parking garage in this area. Having said that, we would locate International Boulevard lower on the property, forego all the building that could have happened on this property, keep the stormwater that's already in place. And basically, and there's another parking area that's already been constructed in this area. I don't think we need that. So we're basically more or less condensing it back into the site as opposed to expanding to different areas, what have you. Some preliminary discussions, we talked about berming and putting in landscaping along International Boulevard, which certainly can be done. You know, personally, if you're driving, and my kids are up in Rochester right now, so I drive this road very frequently. And if you're looking over to the right and you're driving, you shouldn't be looking there, quite frankly, but that's my opinion. Having said that, nonetheless, we're going to screen this from the 84 corridor, from the new International Boulevard, also from Zimmer Road on the backside. This is the ball field back on Zimmer. So
Where did it come out before? Right up there?
right now
Okay.
it comes up here,
And where's Holmes Road?
down here.
Okay.
So basically, just realigning the whole corridor and making it best for both ACE and, quite frankly, I think from a planning standpoint, makes sense for the whole project. With us tonight is Ted Cutler. I'd like to have him just go through a couple plans in terms of architecture. And we're talking about green roofs. We're talking about some other things, features that Mike wants to employ in this. If you ever went out to Ace Indico, you'll see the picnic tables and what have you. We think we can make that more extraordinary in terms of the overall plan.
The bottom line in the end, what will you be coming to the town board seeking? Besides the realignment?
Relocation of the road,
That's it?
I believe so. Yeah, it's a town board action. Ultimately, we'll be back. We're planning on going to the planning board right after this meeting and starting that process.
Have you gone to them with this concept?
We've had preliminary discussion with them, but this is going to be the start of that process.
I believe, in a quick question that, and you are a very good neighbor, and we're happy to have you here. But are you going to, will you be going for more, the pilot program on this? Most likely not? Okay.
Not?
Because that's something we have some say in. So, thank you.
This is Ted Cutler of Tecton. He'll be walking you through some of the elevations and things we're looking at in terms of the building and what it looks like from various locations.
Thank you, Tim. Can I actually borrow your pointer? Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
With the full build-out, without the pilot program up, the tax would probably be over $1 million on the full build-out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted Cutler, Tecton Architects. It's good to be here again and good to represent the architecture at this early stage. So we have two case studies on the board, and I'll share them since they're facing the public. I have smaller copies to pass along there. Essentially, we've looked into various data from GPS to Google Maps to public data and private data of all International Drive to map out the profile, viewing angle, and the actual view from 84. And this is eastbound because westbound is very difficult to actually look up over the grades as you round the corner. So what we have here, first of all, as a starting point, buildings up there now are visible. Very faintly, but you can see buildings up there if you're careful on the highway. So let's look at the proposed case here, adding to the existing Ace Endico building. So you can see there is a faint line behind the tree line, and it is about 850 feet away from westbound traffic, and even further from the eastbound side, which is your viewing angle. So the finishes of this building would be very similar to what they are now. It's an off-white, high-performance metal panel for cold and frozen goods storage, and it tends to blend right into the colors along the highway there, particularly when the leaves fall. That color blends into the sky and to the trees, the bare trees. So the visibility in this case will be marginally increased given the grades and the viewing angle. Incidentally, it's approximately, let's see, 110 vertical feet to get to the floor line, and even higher to that roof line. So you're not just looking over, you're looking up from the highway. The second case study is the 3 approved buildings, pre-approved buildings, lined up on the other side of the current International Drive. What you see there is as realistic a forecast as we can come up with, is a much more prominent building. The largest of the 3 would be the closest to the highway and on the most open from a vegetation standpoint. So that, incidentally, is clearly more visible in this case. But these buildings, as they should be, are designed to face International Drive and front there and service clients and visitors from that side. Their back of house is facing the highway. So while Ace Endico is really going to have a pristine presence and manicured front lawn, et cetera, as they do now, if you haven't been up there recently, these buildings will have their back of house and service yards facing the highway and closer to the highway by almost 200 feet. So just quickly, I wanted to move on from that. And at this early stage, the building is not completely designed. However, it's important to note that while we're sensitive to the fact that the buildings along the highway may not want to be obtrusive, at some point, as you arrive to the site, it's going to be seen, and they want it to be seen. Ace Endico is very proud of their brand. They're proud of their presence in the community, but in the region as a growing business. So there will be certainly new landscaping, new vegetation, some screening, as Tim had mentioned. However, there will be an expanded facility and a brand presence when you arrive there. Are there any questions or any follow-up? Right, okay. So there's been talk of a green roof as well, which is a perfect opportunity, especially with an expansion, because...
The office portion. Vegetation hanging over.
Right, right. That would be very nice. And with the expansion, that's far more plausible than going back and reinforcing existing structure to hold a green roof capacity there. So, and then there is one of the most sustainable first steps in any development project is to stack your program. So one layer of elevated parking would occur near the office expansion. So essentially in that zone, you're doubling the parking with half the pervious surface. And a lot of those cars are sheltered from the heat. You're reducing some of the heat gain that would reflect into the building, and essentially marginally lowering your energy costs in the building. So it's a very sustainable step just to structure some of the parking as well. Any other thoughts on the building? Okay.
Good.
I have questions, of course. Hearing about the green roof always sounds wonderful, but I've been so tortured with this over the years, and it just never seems to get done. So I hope it does become a reality on this. But will you be adding more retail?
The retail will stay the same size, roughly the same size.
Roughly the same? Okay. And will the basins, the stormwater basins that are in now, will those work for the additions, or will those have to be enlarged, do we know?
We don't anticipate it right now. It's all DEP approved, and quite frankly, between the swap of the previous property that was approved and what's already been done at the site, we believe that the stormwater basins can be left alone. Still subject to talking to the DEP, but otherwise, we think it'll be fine.
Okay, and that won't be our purview, but I always am interested.
Well, it'll be the planning board's
Planning
purview,
board,
so,
exactly.
yes.
Exactly. Also, would it be possible at some point when you're ready for members of the town board who are interested to walk, or planning board, we can combine it to walk the property? That would be great, because I would love to see where this is really gonna to go. And then the other thing that I'm tough on is, as you know, is how the finished product looks. So, and I know you're not, I know a lot of this is preliminary, but after walking the property, I think it would give, I'd be really interested and would give me a much better idea. So I'd really appreciate that. Great. Thank you.
It's already a wonderful facility, if you look at it now, and it's only going to be, in knowing Ted and knowing what Mike really wants to put into this building, it's just going to be incredible. It's just going to be much that better, and the tax base and everything else is going to be something it's a win-win for everybody, believe me.
I'd be happy to take anyone through the building, to the building, inside, outside.
Great.
We're
I think
very
what would
proud.
be really helpful and save you a lot of time is if we organize this with the planning board. We've done it for other large projects, and we can't have a quorum go, but this tends to work out and is going to be easier on you, I think. So
Okay, I'd be happy to, thank you.
Great, thank you.
The parking lots that you just put in on the 84 side, will this road make those?
That parking lot would disappear. The road would probably be where the road would be where the parking lot is now.
Okay. And you're going to have to pay for the road,
Correct.
of course. And,
Correct. And the utilities and whatever else needs to be done.
And traffic will continue to just use Independent Boulevard, no use of Zimmer Road.
No, we do not. I mean, in an emergency, we'd have to use Zimmer Road, but we do not use Zimmer Road currently.
Do any of your neighbors, other businesses on Unilock and the others, do they use Zimmer Road, or will they have a need to go on this new section? Or will that basically be
What I see, I do see cars pass through that section.
Right.
I don't see Unilock going on that road. Maybe employees to and from Unilock or Westchester Tractor, but
No,
I
I'm
don't.
just wondering if it's going to inconvenience them during the construction phase as well.
We would, the way I would like to do it is I'd like to build as much of the road as possible with the proper permission. Once that road is complete, then shut our road down.
Okay.
I would, for our own use and everyone's use, I wouldn't want to block that road at all.
Great, thank you.
Now, the road is a road. If you're coming in, going toward Carmel, I shoot up Zimmer Road
Yeah.
and go that way. And if I'm coming from Carmel, I'd go in by the light because it's a lot more convenient, so. People use the road.
No, I just wanted if traffic, or if businesses were using
Well,
it,
but
that's what.
I'm quite, look, from time to time, they might go that way depending on which way they're going.
If it's up to town specs, that won't matter,
Yeah.
so.
It's a road.
I think this is a really neat project, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy you guys are here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
and hearing us.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion now going,
To wrap up, I think probably the planning board will declare themselves lead agency as we get to before them.
just get to the mic again a little bit, if you don't mind.
Just process-wise, we're here before you, obviously representing this and moving the road. But process-wise, we assume that the planning board will take lead agency. We'll be back to you at some point with a referral from them back to this board for the relocation of the road. So that's the process we're moving forward to. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, make a motion to go into the regular portion of the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First item on the agenda there is Resolution Water and Sewer District Use Policy. Resolved that the town board hereby adopts the Town of Southeast Water and Sewer Special District Use Policy dated 9/12/19, a copy of which is annexed hereto, which establishes the procedure for connection to the district improvements and regulations for all water and sewer districts in the town And be further resolved that any subsequent change that will affect the number of parcels within each district identified below and/or any new districts created after this policy goes into effect shall require notification in writing to the town's accounting department, assessor's office, building department, and special districts department. In the special water districts, we have Birch Hill Water, 24, well, I'll call them parcels, units. Blackberry Water, 252. Brewster Heights, 396. Hillcrest Water, 129. Fox Hill Water, 33. Mountain Brook Water, 44. Peaceful Hill Water, 154. Springhouse Estates Water, 54. Star Ridge Water, 98. Special sewer districts, Blackberry Sewer, 252. Brewster Heights Sewer, 396. Peach Lake Sewer, 120. And allegedly, you're not going to see 100 on Route 6. That'd be a county one, hopefully. And be further resolved that this policy will go into effect immediately. And just to further on this, we've had these districts for quite some time, 40, 50 years. We could not find any hard, concrete policy. This way, everyone is treated equally. The more units they have, the less they pay, of course. The less they have, the more they pay. But everyone will be consistent percentage-wise, proportionally.
I'd like to second this for discussion.
Discussion.
I do want to thank you, and I know Levon put a lot of work into this, and I think having consistency in this is much fairer for our residents and probably was overdue, so thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, this policy would be passing tonight, and it will go into effect with the next billing that goes out on October. Some people will be in for, well, not a shock. Some people will start paying, who were paying before, will be paying nothing because vacant parcels.
Right.
I am going to try to make a fairness. Some of these people have been paying into the district for quite some time, and I'm going to look to give them some kind of a credit. You know, it would be like on the books if something happens in the future and they have to go back into the unit, that what they paid over the years, some of that will be refunded. Not refunded, be accredited to them if they ever go into it, just to be fair.
Right.
Yeah, in the event that they needed to hook up,
Yeah.
that would be a credit.
Some people have been paying for maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
So we'll give them a credit, how much they paid in, because we can figure that out, and they'll be given that credit. But we don't refund money.
Right, so you'll have an equal a formula made.
Yeah, there's not many, but there are people, again, some vacant parcels, like I said, when we went through this, we found vacant parcels that were paying, vacant parcels that weren't paying. We had people that were in the district with wells that weren't paying, and people in the district with wells that were paying. So everyone is now going to be consistent. So people who didn't get a bill in the past will be getting one. We made like a minimum charge for the paperwork at the minimum, and it's something that was definitely necessary.
Will you be coming back with a formula for how you're going to credit those people?
I could. It's going to be pretty
because-
soon.
Yeah, only because that way, since we're making everything up to date now, this is like starting point.
There'll be a record of it.
Yeah,
yes.
we could add it easily,
Yeah.
and then it would be consistent for
Yeah.
everyone.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay.
But this is good
Thanks.
now.
Okay. All in favor?
I need a second, Tony.
No,
I seconded for discussion, Michelle, sorry.
How did you miss that?
Actually,
She said
Yeah, I
yes.
thought I was pretty loud as usual. Jeez.
Okay. Number 2, resolution award a contract for a block building demolition. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby accepts the proposal of James Gagliardo Excavating and hereby authorizes supervisor to execute a personal service contract with James Gagliardo Excavating for the demolition of the block building located in the Gold Lot, Main Street, Brewster, New York, and removal of demolition debris associated herewith, and be further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
We hope to get this done either the last week in September, first week in October. The building is pretty much unsafe, and I'll be putting forward a proposal in the future, I would like to see done with it, and the board will have to discuss accordingly.
Could I, okay, so we're going to have to get the stuff out of the building before?
It's gone.
It's already out.
Everything's gone. The only thing we're waiting for is the New York State Electric and Gas to remove the power to it.
Can I ask what the process was as far as going out for bids? Were the bids,
We put it out in the press, and
were they all received and opened at the same time, or?
not necessarily, no. They came into my office. They were all confidential, though.
Okay, yeah, just,
We had a date by which they came. Some people came in early, some came in late. And they were widespread. The highest amount was close to 50,000, and 2 came in within $400 of one another.
Yeah, that's why, that was pretty interesting at that, or that close.
Oh, well, they didn't start off that way. By the time he added the extras, one person wanted more to do some additional extras, and the person wanted less. The one that was shocking was the $50,000.
Yeah. So they were all complete bids when they came in, or did we have to go back and ask them for
Nope.
additional information?
No, what we did, we put together a package, and everyone got the same sheet, was forwarded to them all on the same day, and they filled it out accordingly. They did come in individually. We didn't have a sealed bid, so to speak.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 3, Resolution Batista Southeast Duncan Bond Establishment. Now therefore be resolved that the bond amount is hereby established for the project set forth below. Project name Batista Southeast Duncan. Erosion sediment control bond, $14,200. And be further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution shall be transmitted by the clerk, town clerk, to the applicant, planning board secretary, and building inspector forthwith. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment.
Good evening. Once again, Richard O'Rourke, this time as an attorney on behalf of Barrett Hill Associates LLC. And I'm here tonight to comment on a phone conversation and call I received yesterday from the planning board chairman. This was yesterday. Informing me that the application for final site plan approval with respect to Barrett Hill Associates was being removed from the agenda of September 23rd. It had been placed on the agenda based upon a submission that was received in a timely fashion and for it to be considered on September 23rd. I was informed that the reason for it being pulled from the agenda was because there had been an expiration of the special permit that had been granted in December of 2017. As a result of that, of course, this was yesterday, so I'm here tonight. And I sent to each of you via email a copy of a letter setting forth our position, citing case law, as well as the circumstances surrounding this special permit grant and its the assertion that we should be pulled from the planning board agenda because of its expiration. I don't want to read this in its entirety. I don't think you want me to read it. I'm sure you will read it. And I would suggest also that you speak with counsel regarding what was said. And I think the important thing is there's a couple elements to this. One is that as far as the assertion that the request for the extension is untimely, I cited to a particular case that was decided in the Supreme Court, the state of New York, Westchester County, in 2017, and that's the case of Pacucci versus the town of Newcastle, Chappaqua. And in that particular case, the Supreme Court determined that on those facts, where a request was made for an extension more months beyond the period of time when we have requested the extension, that it was appropriate to grant the extension. And the fact that the request was not made prior to the alleged expiration of the special permit, that nevertheless the permit should be, special permit should be extended. I'm familiar with that case because it was my firm that handled it, and so we're well familiar with the law in that regard. But I think the important thing is that that court also cited to the New York State Court of Appeals case, Town of Orangetown versus McGee, in which the court stated, the Court of Appeals, the highest court in the state of New York, stated, to that end, the Court of Appeals has stated that a vested right can be acquired when pursuant to a legally issued permit. The landowner demonstrates a commitment to the purpose for which the permit was granted by effectuating and effecting substantial changes and incurring substantial expenses to further the development. That is precisely what happened here. And I go on to cite, and I have the emails, there was a cooperative effort in good faith by the applicant, who then filed back, I'm trying to give you the precise date, I don't want to make a mistake here. July 9, 2018, the application for site plan approval was timely filed with the planning board. Fees were paid. It was timely filed within the framework and time frame of the special permit, which was 18 months. After discussions with the planning board and emails which we have, it was decided, the planning board in good faith said, listen, what you really should do is work with the DEP, get your approvals, because we know that the rigid and stringent regulations of the DEP may in fact alter the site plan application. In response to that, the applicant said, okay, we're going to work with the planning board. So that application, timely filed, was put on a suspense calendar while the applicant then went and dealt with the other boards and agencies. And thereafter, and it was on August 27th, which is what, 3 weeks ago, the planning board site plan application was reactivated because the DEP granted its approval of the final plans on August 27th, and it was on August 29th. 2 days later, the applicant immediately reactivated the application. That was the application put in a timely fashion for it to be considered at the September 23rd, 2019 Planning Board meeting. Yesterday afternoon, we were told it was being removed because the special permit had expired. I've laid it out. The applicant has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, went through more than 6 very carefully planned submissions with the DEP to get through the approval process, and now has that, and now has timely filed the application with the planning board. So I'm here tonight because of the phone call received yesterday afternoon from the planning board chairman, stating that the planning board will not consider the application until the special permit is extended. I am unaware of, and the case law is here, the special permit should be extended, and I'm suggesting respectfully that it should be extended immediately so that this application can be heard as it was submitted, properly so, for the September 23rd meeting. At risk is hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been spent since the issuance of the special permit, and because the applicant cooperated with the planning board's wishes.
Well, Rick, as you know, you had sent that out earlier today. I heard rumors of this. I think Ashley Lai from AKRF made us aware in an email that the special permit had expired. The determination was made, and I guess that's why it was taken off the planning board agenda. I spoke with council earlier this evening as well. This is not that it was a controversial plan that came forward, but it passed 3-2. And the board makeup since that point in time is not, it's 3-2 in a sense of membership. But I know I had voted against that at the time. And I buy the argument. I have no problem approving it again, but I voted no. And I'm not sure why I'd have to change my vote to yes. So I'm gonna have to check on council how I have to vote. I'm gonna tell you my biggest concern on this whole thing. And because we just got this, you just covered for me saying why I'm not prepared this evening to answer any of the questions. I wanna go back and look and see what was said in those reports. Because I understand now there's a tremendous problem up there with water. And we were told, I believe, I believe what I read said there was sufficient water at the time for both Fieldstone Pond and this project. And I have since learned in the 2 years since the special permit was issued that there's not enough water for Fieldstone Pond. So I don't think this will be ready for the next meeting. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research and soul searching on my part. But I'm gonna have to check into and find out what the town board was told for the special permit, what the planning board was told for that special permit, and if there's a problem with the water, I'm gonna have to go back. And I would like to ask one question, if it could be answered this evening. How long ago did American Water take this project over?
You know, you and I...
Not the project, but the water.
Right, okay. I spoke on the phone with Larry Nadel, who was the principal that sold the water company to New York American Water. He did not have the file in front of him, but his estimate was that it was at least 4 or 5 years ago that the company was sold. I know you thought it was more recently than that, but it was sold 4 or 5 years ago. And that's subject to confirmation. You can look at the records. I mean, that's the story. But I think that the important thing, though, and I've seen some of the correspondence concerning the water. The water is is everyone's problem, but it's the problem of the water company. It's the problem of the water company. Now, that is something that, whether it's this project or any other project, if you have a private utility that is providing services and it is in a service area approved by the Public Service Commission, whether it's electricity or it's water or it's sewer, there is that affirmative obligation for it to be provided. My point in saying that is that's, with all due respect, the problem of the water company. And clearly, this board, the planning board, anyone, without even stating it, but it can always be conditioned upon that all of the utilities properly serve this development, and that's a condition of the approval, or the condition of the extension of a special permit, or a condition of the final site plan approval. I have no objection to that. It's common sense, it makes sense, and we want it because otherwise we can't build. We can't, even if we got a building permit, we couldn't get a certificate of occupancy. So, with all due respect, that is something that, obviously, that is the water company's concern. It is the water company's issue to solve, and I represented Heritage Hills for the last 30 years, the water company and the sewer company. Wells fail. More wells have to be drilled. Sewer plants have problems. There's notices of violation. They have to be fixed. This happens all the time. When you have, if you have a water system that is approved by the Public Service Commission, it's not static. It's not like you got to stick with the same wells and the same well yield. You have to provide the services for which you were granted that permissive service area. My point in saying that is, with all due respect, that's not a basis to deny the extension of a special permit. As a matter of law, I'll take that to the bank. You'll have the case law. I don't know whether everyone has a copy of the letter. I have additional copies. If you need, does anybody need an additional copy? Okay.
No, I've read it.
And I'd be pleased to discuss this. We want to work cooperatively. We don't necessarily, we'd rather work cooperatively with something like this. And frankly, I could bore you with statistics for why this project makes so much sense. In fact, I spoke today with Barbara Barossa, who is, as you know, the planner in Putnam County, because what I wanted to find out from Barbara, what in fact is the median income in Putnam County? This is very, very important. The median income in Putnam County right now, this is the email from Barbara Barossa. Per our conversation today, Putnam County's median household income is $99,608. You may recall this special permit allows for affordable housing, and to qualify the salaries, the salary has to be less than and up to 80% of what the median income is. What that is $79,686.40. By way of illustration, and I think this is extremely important, my firm represents over 30 school districts. I have the salaries of the school districts in our surrounding area. The Paulding Central School District, the Arlington Central School District, the Carmel Central School District, the North Salem Central School District, the Brewster Central School District. And I'll start with Brewster. If you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and you are employed with the Brewster School District, it's a bachelor's plus master's degree. The starting salary is $64,000. It is after 8 years when a teacher in the Brewster School District no longer qualifies for a unit based on affordable housing. One of the reasons why we went forward with this is Kenny Clare, commissioner. He doesn't have volunteer fire department members. He can't get them. So the problem is, you have to face the harsh realities of what's going on, and that's why this special permit should be renewed. Lastly, and I'll give you a very detailed report in 2 weeks when it will be released by Pattern for Progress. What you have to realize is what's happening in the Hudson Valley, and unfortunately most of New York State. We are getting old. There's no young people that are moving in here.
Speak for yourself.
I'll speak for myself, but just for statistical purposes, the percent change, okay, in 20 to 39-year-olds in Putnam County from 2000 to 2007, 8.5% drop. From 2000 to 2010, a drop of 18.2%. From 2000 to 2017, by 13.7%. Young people are not living here because they cannot afford it. This is based on the U.S. Census Bureau, Decennial Census, and the American Community Survey of 2017. I'm not making this stuff up. We got to consider this as a community, and that's the reason why we did what we did, and I'm respectfully requesting that this special permit be extended.
Okay, and again, my concern, going back to when, I heard all that argument then. I'm part of workforce housing. I qualify for almost all my work for the government. I'm old, I'm military, whatever thing. My problem is, was the town board and the planning boards given misinformation? Not maybe-
Regarding the water.
Regarding the water. I gotta find out, what did they tell us? Because, now, they said when they came in, we don't have enough water, we're gonna put a X gallon of tank, but we found out things in the past 2 years that there's a problem with the water, and I'd almost bet you now that it's been in the past 2 years. And if it's been 5 or 4 or 5 years, like you're saying, I think I better leave now, because time is flying way too fast. So,
Well-
I'm just gonna check, I hear what you're saying, I have to check and see what was said in the presentations to get their approvals.
I think that's very easy. We'll find out what the minutes have said at the public hearing, the representations that were made.
Ms. Eckler? Or is it, well,
Okay.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, if I can make 2 comments to yourself and the board. I will request in our office all corporate documents on the Mount Ebo water system be provided to council and in turn to your council in a complete fashion. The transaction and the conveyance to American Water approximately 5 years ago. All documentation will be provided tomorrow to Mr. O'Rourke and on to Mr. Stevens and yourselves. Nothing will be redacted. We learned of the issue of water supply literally contemporaneously with the town officials and town consultants. We had no knowledge prior to their coming before the boards. I had a call today from council, and I've asked for the formal documentation directed to you and the planning board from American Water. But from the point of the conversation today, and I'd like to see the documentation, the redevelopment of the existing wells, the additional drilling, hydrofracking, and testing that's been complete has now addressed all open issues in terms of capacity and quality for all existing customers in Mount Ebo, Fieldstone Pond, Stonecrest, all the commercial buildings.
Plus Barrett Hill?
They now have the capacity that is twice the daily capacity with your best well out of service. That was this afternoon at about 4:30. I've asked for that documentation. That documentation has already been submitted, I've been told, to the Putnam County Health Department, the State Health Department, and the New York State DEC. American Water went on notice when they had a problem. They've addressed it diligently. I got that information this afternoon at 4:30.
Is Barrett Hill included in those numbers? Do you know?
No, to my knowledge, it is not. It is the existing customers, is the way it was explained to me. I do not know what excess capacity the existing wells that they now have online, or if you will, redevelop. I do not know the excess capacity. The statement was made, we've met that. The application to drill an additional well through the guidance of WSP, the hydrogeologists for American Water, that's pending right now with the planning board, is in an area where they expect the yield to more than meet the requirement for Barrett Hill without touching any of the existing capacity. And we know exactly what the demand is for that.
No, once I see that and research it, I might be happier, but until I see it, I'll take it.
I've asked that that documentation be provided by American Water. I will see that Mr. O'Rourke has what he needs for a transmittal to your board, the planning board, and town council, and anyone else you wish to direct it, that information to, and nothing will be withheld.
Okay.
You'll also have the time period, not only of the transfer to American Water, since I was part of the ownership, but I go back to the original ownership with Mount Ebo, which was somewhat after 1981 when we started this project, 1981. And we built the water and the sewer.
I have one quick question on that while you're talking about the whole district. Is the temple in that water district, or is that a separate?
Every building there, including the temple, is in the water district and the sewer district, as well as providing fire protection to every resident and every building.
I understand the temple's on the market. I'm just concerned if
So am I, and I am concerned
about water
commercially
usage.
and personally for what's occurred.
Okay.
That's a whole different subject.
No.
And my understanding as of 2 nights ago from the board of directors of that institution is that transfer has not occurred. Okay. And I stood up publicly in front of 100 people, and I said, take it to the Attorney General's office and the State Banking Commission, because that's a travesty what's happened up there.
I have no idea what you're talking about. but-
Yeah, I was only bringing it up as for a possible change of use, as far as water usage goes.
That's a big deal.
Right.
State of use. It was, since I stood up on behalf of that organization to get the approval, it was specifically for the use as a house of worship, not a redevelopment as a commercial site or anything else. Thank you.
Tony, I have a few other
Okay.
things.
Do we
if it's
want to
okay.
ask him of Mr. Lepler or Mr.?
No, I can ask them, and then it's a jump ball for everyone. As you know, I voted no originally because I was very concerned about the number of children that would be added to the school district. And interestingly, you mentioned how old our area is getting, and I was fine. I'd gotten used to the idea of the senior housing being there. But I don't see how in good conscience, and I understand, that you can't build if there's not enough water, but I couldn't vote for something and worry about whether residents would have the water. And I also look to the future, because if this ends up being a poorly functioning district, that's how the town, and it won't be me, but it'll be someone else sitting here, and that's how we end up getting stuck with water districts that we don't want, that are malfunctioning, and that people are disgruntled because they have to pay too much. So I don't think it's in the town's best interest to approve something until and unless we know that the water capacity is there. And also, the last thing I'll leave you with is really priority housing. We were advised by our town planner at the time, and it did pass, and so be it, but that it really doesn't pass the smell test as far as being constitutional, because these aren't protected classes. So that's one other sticking point for me as far as what was done there. So Tony and I were the only ones on the board then, I know that. No, I'm sorry, Edwin was too, and Edwin voted in favor, but it's just something that I need a lot more answers before I can tackle this, so thank you.
I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry. So you wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have gotten this letter today if you had filed for a special permit extension back on June 7th. Is that right?
No. Well, obviously what would have happened is I don't think we would have changed your mind.
No, if you went for a special
No,
permit
because,
back then?
no. My point being this, insofar as the water is concerned, as I've said, that is a problem that water company has. I recognize and respect.
You're answering Lynn, you're not answering my question.
Well,
Okay.
I'm going to get there in a moment. May I?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't interrupt you, so could I finish?
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, no, I asked the
Gentlemen,
question,
please,
and you
please.
came
All
up
right, no,
and
I just-
answered
yeah.
something else.
Okay.
If
No.
you wanted to answer Lynn, you could have come up then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I did. I came up now to answer that and to answer your question. You looked at me and you asked me a question,
Right.
and I'd like to answer it.
Thank you.
Okay? I don't think I would have changed your mind because, quite
I don't know
frankly,
what my mind is right now.
I have a sense.
Thank you.
Okay? I have a sense. And I guess my concern is this, that with respect to the water issue, you don't have to believe what I've said, but as a matter of law, the issue with respect to the water, you have a private company that is a utility that has an affirmative obligation to provide water. That is an obligation that may require the drilling of new wells. I used the illustration of Heritage Hills over the last 30 years. Wells fail, new wells are drilled. That is something that happens with utilities. And they have to find water. That is the obligation. That, to me, with all due respect, based on what I know, is not a basis or a valid basis to deny an extension application. Now, with regard to the question of we wouldn't be here tonight requesting an extension, we certainly would have to have gotten an extension anyway, even if we were within the 18 months, because at 18 months, we didn't have site plan approval. Had we received the site plan approval during that period of time, then we would not have needed an extension. The reason we did not get the site plan approval, notwithstanding the fact we filed the application in a timely fashion, is because in good faith, it was the planning board that said, look, hold off. We want to see you get further down the road with the DEP so that we know exactly what this is going to look like. Shame on us.
Yes. I mean,
I guess because we, in good faith, cooperated, worked collaboratively with the planning board.
Okay, but my point is that if you had come in earlier to get the extension, knowing that the site plan approval had not been fulfilled, we wouldn't really be having any of these discussions. We might later on with the issues that are coming up about the water, but this, I just think that if on June 7th, if you had filed for that at that time, there wouldn't be as much of an issue right now.
I think if we look at June 7th, by that point in time, the water issue had unfortunately come to light. And I think in addition to that, I would suggest to you that some of the objectives not articulated by you, but by Ms. Eckhart, would be the same objections in terms of the issue of multi-family workforce housing. It would be the same. It would be the same objections, I think. I mean, I've tried to convince you that it actually helps our community because based upon what the fire commissioner has said about the difficulties he has getting volunteers. I tried to show that with respect to some of the concerns about who might possibly populate this, I would hope that those teachers that would have the ability to rent a really brand new apartment at an affordable basis, and I've demonstrated, and I'll supplement.
Rick, I think you're missing my point is that I'm not against affordable housing. I don't think you can discriminate about who gets affordable housing except for by their income. Or priority housing, I'm not sure why a school teacher would be more worthy than a single mother who just doesn't have enough money. So that was really my point, and one of the reasons.
Well, she can apply too. I'm just using it as an illustration.
I know, but I don't.
I'm not suggesting you would take a school teacher over a single woman who is not making enough money.
Right. I just don't think the preference groups, in my eyes, they do not seem constitutional. They're not protected classes. Seniors are, even veterans, which I don't understand, but veterans are not a protected class. So we don't have to argue this now, and you know how I feel about this project, so we don't have to beat a dead horse, but.
I'm trying to change your mind.
I know, well, that's
because I think it's a good thing. Because I think it's a good. Because I think it's a very good thing for the community. That's that's what I think.
Thank you.
I have a daughter that could slide very easily into that, into that affordable housing, and I wish it was available for her. I'm not looking for any priority or anything like that.
Can I have a copy of the letter?
I'm sorry?
Can I have a copy of the letter? I've got it on my...
I've got multiple copies.
I got it right here.
Okay.
You want another copy?
Thank
Yeah, I can print them out.
You can, yeah.
You emailed them to us, we all have it on our computer.
You all have it. If you don't, let me know. Seriously. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I didn't mean, I'm just passionate about this because I really, not only do I think it's appropriate for the community, but I think in terms of the extension, the law's on my side, so.
I'm passionate about making sure whoever comes in this community, because believe me, I have Springhouse Estates, I have Peaceable Hill, and we've inherited water districts, and we're going into something we now know, which we didn't know 2 years ago. Maybe the board would have voted the same way, I don't know. But if we knew that there was not sufficient water, even for the development that's there with a new one, I'm not sure they would have voted that way. Who knows? If you don't have water, you don't have life.
And we're not, and as I've said, we could not get a building permit, we could not get a certificate of occupancy unless there was water.
Okay.
I mean, that's the ultimate hook. So we can't do that. I mean, that's the condition that could be attached clearly. So anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, have a good evening. Anyone else from the public? Town board? Good night now.
I just wanted to say that e-waste last weekend was a big success again. There were 55 residents brought things in. I want to thank John Lord, who worked the whole day there, which was above and beyond the call. And the trailer is full, and we will be replacing it. So thanks to everyone so far who's been helping with the e-waste. And thanks to Eric, I should say, who came down and fixed the computer, too. So
It broke down?
anyhow, so.
I didn't hear about that one.
No, so despite everything, it was a big
It was
success.
almost a quorum.
Yeah, it was almost a quorum. Thank God I fled. So anyhow, thank you all for bringing your electronics in.
So can I ask something about e-waste? So we've had it for 3 months now?
4.
4.
And we filled up the container
Yes.
with a little bit of overflow. So I think we should probably keep it going like every month.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's been averaging.
During the winter time, it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the winter, but we can.
I think it's been averaging around 50 people
Yeah, 50.
per month too.
And we also have to have 3 people there. I hope you agree with me there finally, not 2.
No, I like the 2 strong people, but it's
Is
okay.
there-
This is going to be your baby, Tony, not
Is there a
mine.
way
No, it's
we
gonna
can
be-
get this assigned to
No.
special districts or someone
Wait
that should be
until-
responsible?
January 1st.
Because I didn't like being there the whole time.
I
to
don't
be
blame
honest
you,
with
and it shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
So right now, you have to wait till January 1st, and we will have changes in the town.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have to look at everything and look at the winter months too, so.
Can I ask some other questions?
No.
Any update on the solar landfill?
You know, you're trying to steal all my thunder. I don't do
I've got
anything.
something else I'm gonna steal too.
Okay, solar landfill, I've been working on it now for,
8 years.
no, not quite, but
Really?
the last 5 months. And I finally have a template that I was able to use to make it work here for the town of Southeast. Levon is now reviewing it because he's the one who's going to actually sign off on it, and the end beside the town board, of course. So I'm hoping to have it to you by, it won't be September 26th, probably the first meeting in October. I'll have the RFP available, seek the approval. We don't have to vote to send it out, you know, it's not going to be an RFP, it'll be a real RFP, not like we did with the,
Isn't that your birthday, September 26th?
no, we're not doing it then, okay? We're doing it in October. So I want to make sure we get the whole thing together. Again, Levon's reviewing it. I'm going to forward it to Will to make sure we kind of got all the T's crossed. Again, the first time we went out for it, it was a lot easier. Things have changed dramatically. I didn't understand probably 2/3 of the new terms that they're using, so I had to educate myself, and don't even ask me a question about it because I don't have my cheat sheet. I couldn't tell you a thing about it. But at any rate, by October, I'll have it in front of the board in a work session to review. You can make comment, and then we will put it on BidNet and whatever, and seek quotes to get it done.
Do you want to comment before I steal your thunder again?
No, I want to hear that. I might be able to steal some of yours. Okay.
Now, I wanted to ask about, I know you got that thing from Metro North, the MTA, about the parking lot.
Yes.
And it's a 5-year agreement. Can they pull that at any time, or no?
Probably not.
Okay.
No, we got it a year and a half in advance.
Right.
I didn't like what I heard tonight. If the railroad comes, we probably won't need as many parking spaces, but they're always trying to steal our money, so it doesn't matter one way or the other.
Right.
But I don't think what they're talking about is gonna happen. A friend of mine, I've been telling him for 2 years, it's not happening yet. And I said, you'll be lucky if it starts in 5 years, but it's a good thing. We have a 5-year renewal. The first year was a 30 years. As a matter of fact, Rick O'Rourke was the town attorney at the time when they worked out the original. It was 30 years. He said, it wasn't a great job. Yes, it was, but only for the first 10. Because after 10 years, you got to start replacing the pavement and doing this and doing that. And we're responsible 100% of the upkeep of we share half the revenues and all the expenses. Now, that's not fair, but I'm happy to keep the revenues, about $200,000. And if we were to lose that $200,000, we would have a problem with our budgets.
So with the 5-year thing, if any road repairs needed to be done, we would do a real good job so we don't have future problems.
No.
No?
No.
Keep going it the way it is.
No, it's in good shape. You know, they ask us to do whatever they've asked us done, we've done, and that's probably one of the reasons they're extending it from the 30 years for an additional 5. And I'm thankful for it because I'm going to be covered because I'm on a post this year, but it's something that the town will have, so we're guaranteed, as long as I'm here, that $200,000, which we can't afford to lose because we don't get a lot of income. We have to either charge the taxpayers, there's no share in the sales tax, which is going through the roof.
Yeah.
And they got to find a way to trickle some of that down to the towns. But that's another story, another time, so don't get me upset.
I fight with them all the time. They're used to it, so.
Eric, are you done? You want another question? You have one more, as long as I'm not involved.
What else?
No, you don't.
I don't have any comment.
Happy birthday next month.
Oh, thank you. Wait, next month. This next meeting.
I know.
Okay.
And I don't want nothing either.
Okay.
Dig into a swallow. Okay, you know, we're out walking the streets, quite a few of us. I'm telling you right now, 911 number, it's bad. I mean, you got to understand. Someday you're gonna want these fire departments, the ambulances to come. I am telling you now, you have to go back and forth to see what the mailbox before. Some mailboxes are on the same side of the road. You're not gonna need it until you need it. And then it may be too late. So please, go out to your mailboxes, go out to your homes, look from the road, and if you sit back way off the road, put a little 2x2 beam out there, put your number on it. It would really be helpful. You don't have to put your name, but at least put your number. It's really, really important. I'll entertain Motion?
Look that way.
You want to go home?
I'll make a motion to close tonight's meeting.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming.